watching Rogers TV.
Hey, welcome to Daytime Ottawa here on Rogers TV. A great show ahead for you. We've got some holiday decor, some great holiday food. We're talking cold and flu season. Mary Taggart is back with Mary's Must Read Book Club pick this time around. Speaking of books, we're speaking to the author of a brand new book. It is called The Speculatores, The Men Who Spied for Rome. And I am joined by its author, Mario Bartolini. Welcome back. Great to have you here. Congratulations. And I want to start, first of all, why Rome? Because all of your books so far have been, I think you're writing another one as well on Rome. What stood out to you? What was the inspiration for you?
For this book?
Yeah.
Specifically? Well, when my first book came out discussing the reigns of the Roman emperors, I've stumbled upon sources that discussed about intelligence. So, but by analyzing it a little further, I realized that the references were more for internal spying, not external spying.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
you know, recently conquered lands, well, the Romans would be, you know, checking to make sure that everything was going okay, assisting the taxpayers,
right,
or the taxman, to, you know, that kind of stuff. But there was nothing for external spying. And to me, I found that odd. An empire is not maintained by being isolated like that. So
right.
I took a note of myself that I would get back to that once the first book was published, which I did. So yeah, I started digging, and that's
because a lot of historians, as you said, they didn't think any espionage was being done outside of sort of, you know, what was happening in Rome itself, right?
Yeah.
Many of us have watched movies, and I was just telling you, I just finished watching a series, fictitious, of course, but when you think about the Roman Empire, it's all the little things that were happening within. So when did the spying itself, who were they spying on at the time?
Well, the Persians and the Germans were the two main nemesis of the Roman Empire. Okay. So they spied on them most of the time. There were other issues, but the thing is, the challenges with that is that there's not a lot of sources out there. That's why some historians tend to discard it, to say, well, no, it didn't happen. There's not enough. But when you start digging, there is. And of course, when you're spying on someone, you don't brag about it. Even nowadays, you don't, you know, especially in movies, it's another story. But so, and the sources that we have are unidirectional, only from the Roman perspective, because the Germans didn't know how to write or read back then. And the Persians back then, Iranian culture was a lot oral. And the little bit that has been written, well, you know, that area of the world has always been troublesome, so a lot of didn't survive. So what we know about Persia in those days are taken from Greek and Roman sources. So that's another challenge.
Right.
And the other challenge that we have when we look into this is before the 4th century, there was no incentive for Rome to use anything else but force or the projection of force. So they didn't have to develop other means of diplomacy to deal with the Germans or the Persians, but brutal force.
So who was doing the spying? Well,
we have to be in the context. Like the Romans did not have an agency like we have in a modern sense, like say, you know, CSIS, FBI, or CIA, like that. But they did hire special one-on jobs with specific people who had the traits, let's say they spoke the current languages or knew the area of interest and all that. So the spies that were hired were on one-on-one cases, taken from an agency. One of them is Agentis in Rebus, means in English agent of all things.
Okay.
Those were senior government employees, let's say, if we can use the term loosely. Their role was to escort high dignitaries or to transmit imperial decrees and stuff like that. So they would be used often against the Germans mostly. Another agency was the notari, which is translated as a secretary or a stenographer.
Okay.
Now, these highly educated people spoke several languages, would be present when the emperor was giving a lecture or there were meetings, they would take notes. That was their primary role. But you can see them sometimes dressing in a toga in the capital of Persia, taking notes and sending it back. So
yeah, tell me how did that work? What sort of spying activities were they doing once they got to this place they were? Obviously, they were, you know, to use a modern term, undercover, right, at the time. So how did they spy, and how did they relay that information back to Rome?
Good question. Everything was human to human. There's no technology over there, satellites or balloons or planes and stuff like that. So it's mano a mano. That's the way it worked.
Yeah.
I found a few examples like this guy who was he was an otari, secretary, but he was dressed wearing a toga at the court of Ctesiphon, which is close to Baghdad today in Persia. Now, nowadays, you couldn't just dress like a senator and get away with it. You couldn't you know, you don't the strated levels of society were very strict. So this individual was taking notes on what he could see inside the city, how much food that was there, are the walls being rebuilt, how many troops are there, writing those down on paper using a code, not just plain Latin, but using a code, folding the piece of paper and putting in the scabbard of a sword, and giving that to a centurion, say, you go, you know, because these people were always escorted by military personnel who would be sent back afterwards, but the diplomats would stay around longer. So that's how information was being transmitted.
Well, and you have an interesting background as well, right? Because you worked in intelligence and you worked in the military as well. What's the difference between those two, though? Because I guess that's some of the confusion when it comes to whether espionage was actually being conducted by the Romans, right?
Yeah, correct. One mistake that I see often with modern scholars is they don't understand what the intelligence world is.
Right.
The innuendos, the subtleties, stuff like that. So they see someone, you know, doing what I just described. Oh, it's military reconnaissance. Well, there's a big difference with military reconnaissance, which is usually done in a time of war. When an army is moving somewhere, you got reconnaissance people around. So it's not the same thing as writing a coded message in peacetime, dressed as a diplomat and hiding it and sending it back. So that's one of the mistakes I've seen quite a bit. And the fact that I was working 24 years in national security and emergency management, and as being a reservist in armed forces in a reconnaissance unit, specifically doing that. So I know the dogma.
Yeah, exactly. So you're working on another book as well, right? Around the same subject of Rome.
Yes. Right now, I'm looking more at I'm going through again the reigns of the emperors. And the curious thing that prompted me to do that is the 85 emperors I discussed in my first book, only 23 of them died of natural deaths out of 85.
Right.
So the rest were either assassinated or died in battle or pushed to suicide. So there was a lot of opposition. Like you look at the series that you discussed earlier, the emperors were always going like this, you know, life was easy and not at all.
Not what we see in film and television.
With a knife there or something.
Exactly.
So I'm looking into that.
This is available on Amazon, correct? They can find it on Amazon. Again, the Speculatores, The Men Who Spied for Rome. You can find it on Amazon and where books are sold. We'll be back with, speaking of books, Mary Taggart with her latest book club pick right after this.
You're watching an interesting local show on Rogers TV and you want to know more. That's when you head to rogerstv.com. Our website provides more information about our programs, our hosts, our schedule, and about how you too can get involved with Rogers TV. Visit us online at rogerstv.com.
This episode of Daytime Ottawa is brought to you in part by Trio Financial Planning, helping individuals and families live today and build for tomorrow. Branton Renovation is pleased to support this episode of Daytime Ottawa. Branton Renovations, Ottawa's award-winning renovations team.
Kids these days, people say we lack initiative.
And technology, that we're all addicted.
Kids these days, we hear that we only care about ourselves.
Apparently, we're lazy.
and don't seem to have any sense of independence.
Actually, kids these days are facing a lot because the world has changed, and so have our health issues. Kids these days, we could really use your help. Join CHIO in our biggest fundraising campaign ever to transform pediatric care.
This episode of Daytime Ottawa is brought to you in part by Dustin Design and Drafting, your first step toward building your dream project with a team approach. Daytime Ottawa is proudly supported by Mary's Must Read Book Club. Follow Mary on social media at Mary K. Taggart for her latest book club picks.
This episode of Daytime Ottawa is brought to you in part by Eastboro Designs. Eastboro Designs, designing a bold lifestyle through functionality and beauty. Hey, welcome back. We are back with Mary Taggart and a Mary's Must Read Book Club pick. But before we get to that, last time Mary was on the show, she was looking for a literary agent. So that's where I want to start. So, do we have a follow-up?
Well, it's funny you should ask this.
Okay.
I mean, as I told you last time, so I left my an agent that I had secured. And I was in this precarious position of wondering if I would ever find a literary agent again. And I just signed with a fabulous agent with an agency in New York City. Michelle Jackson is my new literary agent, and I am so happy to get started with her.
So this is obviously promising, but what does this mean? Obviously, you sent her some of your writing, and she said, "Hey, I think you've got it."
It's an interesting story because you put together a package where you have what's called a query letter, and in 350 words you describe. It's kind of like a book jacket, basically, about your novel, and then you give about 10 pages, and then you hope that a literary agent will ask for more. It's very rare that they ask for more. So Michelle was one of 11 agents who asked for more, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
But what Michelle came very quickly back to me, she said, I would like to request a revise and resubmit, which means she saw some things that needed tweaking, and she gave me a really big editorial letter, which is very rare. And I thought, okay, wow, like a literary agent does not get paid until they sell your book.
Right.
So for them to invest in that the way Michelle did, I was kind of like, this is very peculiar. Yes, it is flattering, but it's also very nice of her. And then about a week later, she emailed me and said, can we have a phone call? And I'm like, okay, wow. And this is a Saturday. And I'm like, sure. And then in the phone call, she said, I can't stop thinking about your book. I've given you so many notes. I would like to offer you representation.
Wow.
So yeah.
Congratulations. This is exciting.
It's so exciting.
So what's the next step?
So now I'm working on all the revisions, and I actually finished all the revisions just recently, sent them back to Michelle, and her assistant is reading the new version. Then her assistant makes notes, and then Michelle will read the new version.
Okay.
And then they will come back to me with probably a bunch more notes.
Revised revisions.
Revised. And then I'll get to work again. And then when we feel that it's ready to go on submission, then Michelle, on my behalf, will send the novel out and try and find a publisher.
Sell it to publishers.
And sell it to publishers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you.
I know.
I'm so excited.
It's fun.
All right, let's talk about today's pick, because everyone's been waiting and waiting for your next pick.
I know, exactly.
This is called The Days Between. Tell me about this book.
So The Days Between is by a debut author, Robin Morris.
Okay.
And the really fun thing for me, well, you met Brianne Somerville.
Yes.
Robin is also in our writing group. And
excellent.
Yes, exactly. So The Days Between, I've read as a draft. which is very early stages of a novel. So I have had the privilege of watching it evolve. And Robin, landed a book deal with Lake Union Publishing, which is a really big deal.
Wow.
So I've known that this book would be out in the world for well over a year now, because that's how long it takes. So it finally came out just last week. It's released, and it is my Mary's must-read pick because it's such a, so we've got a character, Andrew.
Okay.
And he and his wife are struggling with fertility issues. And so it's causing, as it does, it's causing issues within their marriage. It's a lot of stress to go through fertility issues. And Andrew is waiting in the coffee shop, and a chance encounter brings him back in touch with the one who got away, an old girlfriend, a past love of his life.
Okay.
And he quickly learns that they share a child together, a 19-year-old son that he had no clue existed in the world. So you can imagine what that does to a man who, wants to be a parent, and yet there's fertility issues within his spouse, and they're having trouble. So suddenly he's a dad, and it's causing it sends him spiraling. Like, he's just out of control, basically. He wants to be a part of this kid's life, but he's got his marriage, and his poor wife is struggling. So there's so much tension and past secrets and future secrets. It's.
I can't imagine the tension with himself and his spouse, right? Because they're desperate for a child.
Yes.
And then he's like, "Hey, guess what? I have one."
I have one, but he doesn't do the guess what.
He does.
Keeps
So
it
he doesn't
secret.
say it.
Doesn't let her know.
Okay.
So it takes place in Delray, and there's some Palm Beach in there, which I love Palm Beach, except for that person who shall be nameless.
Yes, please.
Whatever.
Let's not talk about that.
Let's not talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, so it's perfect timing for a vacation read. The setting is fantastic, and Robin is such a talented author. So I've read some stuff she's coming up with.
Really?
Yes, it's
You're
really
so
exciting.
lucky.
So
that's cool.
I'm so lucky. This girl is so talented.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you read the draft, and now you've read the novel that's been. So was there a big difference between the draft and this final product?
That's such a good question. That's such a good question, because often, people say, well, Robin herself would email and say, this is a dumpster fire. and she's so dramatic. She's so fun the way she talks. And it was never a dumpster fire. She's very talented. And there were differences. So the only difference I would say was she's the queen of overwriting, way too,
Right.
So she had to dial that back, which is a really great problem for a writer to have.
For sure.
Because you can quickly see that's where your writing group will come in and say, yeah, you said that 6 times.
Yeah, in six different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
We've all read a book like that, and it drives you nuts.
It drives you nuts.
Right?
And that's where, your critique partners and your agent will come into play, and they'll say, yeah, we don't need to hear about that again and again and again and again.
Nice.
So really, the story was always there and really well told.
Robin Morris's The Days Between debut novel, as you just heard from Mary, fantastic book. Follow Mary, by the way, on X at Mary K. Taggart, and you can check out her website, marytaggart.com. We'll be back with more right after this.
This episode of Daytime Ottawa is brought to you in part by Trio Financial Planning, helping individuals and families live today and build for tomorrow. Branton Renovation is pleased to support this episode of Daytime Ottawa. Branton Renovations, Ottawa's award-winning renovations team.
This is a brain in urgent need of mental health care. But because 3 out of every 4 Indigenous people experience racism in healthcare, she may not get the help she needs. Become an ally. Rise above racism in healthcare.
episode of Daytime Ottawa is brought to you in part by Dustin Design and Drafting, your first step toward building your dream project with a team approach. Daytime Ottawa is proudly supported by Mary's Must Read Book Club. Follow Mary on social media at Mary K. Taggart for her latest book club picks.
This episode of Daytime Ottawa is brought to you in part by Eastboro Designs. Eastboro Designs, designing a bold lifestyle through functionality and beauty. I mean, sometimes things just come together. Little did I know that one of my guests on the show is celiac. One of my volunteers is celiac. So when they looked at the table that I have in front of me right now and went, none of that? It has gluten in it? All of it's gluten-free? I went, absolutely. Because Miriam Pearl is back. She is the founder and recipe developer at Delicious Without Gluten. Welcome back. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Isn't that a nice sign, though, right?
I know.
Like two people in the room go, oh, my goodness, all of this is gluten-free, right? And I mean, we've talked about your story before, but again, you have family members, and this is why you decided, you know what, things on the market, they taste like sand, and I'm going to change all that, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the inspiration. But today we're talking holiday baking,
That's right.
And it's a really difficult time for people that have gluten intolerance or are celiacs because they feel that they can't enjoy everything like the rest of us.
I
right?
know. But I did a little poll. I went on Facebook and I said, hey guys, what do you wish you had? What would you like to learn? What would you like? And everybody was like, puff pastry.
I'm not surprised, right? Because people don't think that the alternatives can get you exactly that texture, right? I mean, puff pastry's all about that texture, right?
It is, but it's not like we can't do it. It's just that it's not readily available in the grocery store.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to get, and people shy away. People are very nervous to do this kind of thing at home. And I wanted to show how, of course, as usual, how easy this is.
All right, well, let's do it.
People
Let's
can get
dive
in the
in.
kitchen.
Okay.
So today, of course, I do dairy-free, but I want to encourage people, if they want to eat dairy, that they can use butter.
Okay.
I have tried several things. This actual plant-based margarine is solid enough for this type of work.
Okay.
So there are soft margarines on the market, and there are some shortenings, but they're soft.
Right,
and a lot of water
because
content.
you need kind of that in between, right? What do you want? Room temperature? Is that the
No,
idea?
you want it as cold as possible.
As cold as
yes,
possible.
in fact,
okay.
Usually if you're going to grate this, you'll grate the pieces of the margarine or the butter with a grater, like a large grater, so that it would be like a cheese, you know?
Gotcha.
But we're going to find an easier way. It's funny, I actually
what are you looking for?
Forgot the butter. It's in my bag there. But you know what?
Oh,
what I'm going to do
Sherry,
is...
grab the bag. Which bag is it? We can do this. Don't worry.
I am not sure. So what we're going to do...
That's okay. Sherry's looking for it.
She's looking for it.
Yeah.
So what I did, actually, thank goodness, I took 2 sticks of butter straight from here. Okay, that's the margarine. And basically, I cut it in cubes.
Right.
Very easy to do.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do that so that I would skip some of this work because it's very long. You have to do it when it's cold, and a lot of things can happen on TV with lights and everything else.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what I did is I chopped them up in little cubes like this.
Yeah.
And you can do, like I said, if you want, you can grate it.
Yeah.
But it's simple. It's all-purpose flour. I sell like a gluten-free all-purpose flour, and it's 300 grams of the flour and then 2 sticks of butter with a teaspoon of salt. That's the entire thing.
That's all the ingredients.
To that, though, water is an ingredient.
Right.
And so what you want to do is you want to wet with about 3/4 cups of water. And that's exactly for the purposes to get everything bound together. And you don't really want to touch the cubes. You just want to keep the water moist until it all gathers together. Okay. So you have to go slowly I'm actually not going slowly because I'll be here all day. But basically what you're going to do is just gather everything. You're going to do it just until it gathers.
Okay.
And then you get this big,
So it's not
gloopy,
a real big mixing process here. You want to make sure you keep some of those
exactly.
clumps. Okay.
What normally I would do is I would turn this over onto the table and just clump it up together.
Okay.
And then I would put it in a square. Okay. Now this is really easy. Actually, during the break, I'll just put that there.
Yeah.
I would normally just put it on there, and I just put one in the fridge before I came.
Yeah.
To make sure that it's nice and cold, so that it could be pliable.
Okay.
So you can still see the butter pieces. I don't know if you can still see that, but you have butter pieces in there, and this has not been done anything. It's just a block, okay?
Gotcha.
So what we have to do is take a little bit of flour, and I should take another pair of gloves, and then on top over here, and I'll grab the gloves over here, and then we're just going to use a rolling pin, and then I'm going to show you there's different kinds of folds, and you'd fold it 4 times, and then your puff pastry is ready. I wouldn't use it at all to what do you call it? To use right away, because you want it to be very cold. Now, I already froze this morning, so it's a little bit too cold. It's live TV.
Yeah, exactly.
But
don't worry about it. We understand.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how it works. So I made these little diagrams. And the first thing is you're going to do a 3-fold. And I did that because I wasn't sure the puff pastry was going to be too soft or too cold. And now it's too cold.
We're not exactly in the perfect...
no, I had to freeze it first.
Exactly.
So
not the perfect environment for puff pastry, friends.
You're taking a piece of pastry dough, and you're just working it, and you're folding it in 3.
Okay.
And then fold again, and then you fold it in 3 again. The same way, but this way and that way. Or you can do it in 4s. It's kind of silly that I can't show you, but I'm going to try again.
No,
and you can do it in 4 as well.
Yeah.
It's called a book fold when you do 4, 1 in, 1 out. And basically you just keep doing it. Actually, everything is so salvageable. So you can keep going until your dough is
nice and flat, right? You want
nice and flat.
Okay.
I already took some flat pieces so that we can show you all the things that you can make with this. You have to, I don't want to pound it because it's on top of the stove here. So I'm not going to do that. But what I'm going to do is put that aside.
Yeah.
I already made some flat pieces in case this happened because I wasn't sure if it was going to be.
Because you're a professional when it comes to television.
I'm telling you.
It's
so
true.
I already put one out.
Okay.
Flat. And basically what you do is we're going to make different things.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's pause for a moment because we have another segment with you.
Yes.
Okay. We are going to take a very short break here. We'll be back with Miriam Pearl from Delicious Without Gluten. By the way, deliciouswithout.com is where you can find her online and, of course, on social media as well. But we'll be back to continue this conversation in just a moment.
Kids these days, people say we lack initiative.
And technology, that we're all addicted.
Kids these days, we hear that we only care about ourselves. Apparently, we're lazy.
And don't seem to have any sense of independence.
Actually, kids these days are facing a lot. Because the world has changed, and so have our health issues. Kids these days, we could really use your help. Join CHIO in our biggest fundraising campaign ever to transform pediatric care.
Hi, I'm Sam LaPrade, host of Ottawa Business Matters. We're going to gather here every single week and speak about business here in the capital. We're going to inspire, influence, and inform. I'm Sam LaPrade. I hope you join us for an hour to give. It's a wonderful way to learn all about the charities and nonprofits in this community that are changing and saving lives. Look forward to seeing you then.
My childhood was quite difficult growing up in the foster system. As a foster child, you don't get access to a lot of the same opportunities that biological children would. When I started post-secondary, the grants that I received from Children's Aid Foundation of Canada gave me the opportunity to choose what I wanted to do and not limit my choices to what I could afford on my own. Education makes every child unstoppable.
Are you a content creator looking to expand your audience and make your voice heard in your community? Rogers TV wants to provide you with a platform to share your hobbies, interests, and stories for free. Visit us to find out more.
Watch Podium exclusively on Rogers TV.
And welcome back to the show. We are back with Miriam Pearl, founder and recipe developer at Delicious Without Gluten, and she's furiously working away here because she wants to show everybody at home some of these great pastry ideas. So you're doing like a bit of a pizza kind of roll here right now, right?
Yeah, I want to get started because the time just passes us by.
It's because we're having too much fun together, Miriam.
I know. We have some pizza sauce, and I just put some pizza sauce on the bottom of a square sheet or a rectangular, and I put some cheese on top. You can stick any kind of pepperoni, whatever you want to do. And then you just roll it up like a cinnamon bun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then you can just cut them up.
Oh, this is like a great hors d'oeuvre idea.
It is.
Right? Like
and
everybody would love those.
There you go. And that's what I did. I sort of drizzled on top some little tomato and sun-dried tomatoes.
So that's the finished product right here, everybody.
Exactly.
Some olives on there. It looks great.
So this one over here is, so I put apples in there, and I put apples in here as well.
Yeah.
And this is just a chunk of apples, and I took a strip, and I wrapped it around the apple.
How easy is that?
And this one is really easy. So with puff pastry, you always need some egg wash on top. So you would egg wash this after.
Right.
And then
that helps get it that sort of golden
brown
color?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
That's what that's all about. And then when you do these over here, they're super easy.
Those are beautiful.
You take one smaller cutter. You have like a cutter.
Okay, you got a large and a small.
A large one and one inside.
Yeah.
And then you just make one on top of the other. And then you put them in the oven exactly like this. It's 15 minutes at 400 degrees.
Wow, that's
and
fast.
That's it. It just puffs up. Just
and
like
it
that.
puffs up that much,
Exactly.
And then you just, what did you add in here? A little bit of apple inside and then some fruit on top?
Actually, that one is with a lemon curd inside.
Oh, nice.
With some with some raspberries and blueberries.
Okay.
Another one you can do if you want, there's the sticks.
Yeah.
So the sticks are really easy. Again, you can put in, let's say I have some crushed garlic, some parsley on top. So you want all this texture here.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what you do is you stick it all on this side, you fold it like this, and again, you cut little strips, and then you just twist.
And then put it in the oven again, same thing.
You put it inside with the egg wash, and you put it in for 15, 20 minutes until it's golden brown.
Sherry, who's celiac, who's coming up on the show after you. I've never seen a guest so excited before watching a kitchen segment off to the side. Awesome.
Another one you can do is just when you're making your little pies, for example, you can stick them in the freezer like this.
Oh, okay.
And so it's easy when company's coming, it's already done.
Right.
You thaw it out and you stick it in the oven, you put your egg wash on, and that's it.
Love it.
So
and you got little wieners here, right?
Yeah,
the little wiener wrap, which a lot of people do.
Those will have to do with a little bit of a rectangle, like you would for a croissant. You take a little hot dog, and then voila.
Look at that. Hey?
Yeah, and then you shake on some sprinkles, or not sprinkles, some sesame seeds,
right.
and then
it's for the savory.
For the same, exactly.
We got to talk about these because these look absolutely spectacular. What are you using? So is this your all? Oh, this is a bread mix this time.
So this was all-purpose flour.
Right.
This is just a bread mix.
Okay.
So we make our bread with it. What you do is I have a recipe that I'll put on my website soon. It is basically you just put a little bit of sugar, a little bit of yeast, and an egg.
Okay.
And by the way, if you don't use egg and you want to use an egg wash, you could use aquafaba. It's the juice from the chickpea. It works the same. And basically, you add the whole thing together. It turns into a dough. You roll out the dough, probably more successfully than this one. It's really easy.
Don't be so hard on yourself, Miriam.
12 by 16, and you cut it in half, which is 6 inches, and twice again, and you roll them. And I show them on my website on how beautiful they end up looking. And I put them in the oven to proof a little bit.
These. Yeah.
A little bit with water on the bottom of the oven, and I proof for about 15, 20 minutes. And then after that, I put the oven on, and in a half an hour or 25 minutes, that's how it comes out.
How
and then
long?
You do frosting.
How long was this process of coming up with these alternatives to the flours, that we've used throughout history?
I spent the entire day yesterday just trying to get the cinnamon bun to really, really work with the mix, because everybody buys them at my place, and everyone's like, "What is going on? How do you make that?" And I'm like, you know what? I need to make it simple for you. So what I like doing is trying to make everything as simple as possible. And this is a similar recipe for a pie crust, right?
Yeah, of course.
So
exactly.
Everything is, you can do the same, but the difference is the flour. Right?
Yes.
So you're using gluten-free flour and gluten-free flour, and you're would make a bread, right?
Yep.
But the bread is gluten-free. So
and you know what? That part of what I think frustrated a lot of people, and Sherry probably would agree with this, is that there were all those favorites. Before, you got the diagnosis, you had all these favorite baked goods, and then realized you can't eat them anymore, right? And then someone like you comes along and goes, "No, I am not going to accept this. We will be eating delicious things no matter what," right?
It's so important to feel normal, and it's so important to be able to get all these fancy things during the holidays. People come by and you want to have something ready, and these are so simple to do, and I need people back in the kitchen.
Not only that, but these, and I've taste tested so many of Miriam's things over the years, you no longer have to have the baked goods for everybody that, does not have a sensitivity or a celiac. You can just make them all gluten-free because they now finally taste fantastic across the board,
I'm telling you, nobody would know the difference. Here, it's so worked and so well done. And with the flours that we have available now, it just makes life so much easier.
Yeah.
And enjoyable.
Well, exactly. You obviously celebrating Hanukkah, right? For the holiday.
Christmas.
Exactly. But again, have you been able to do all those alternatives as well with all of, a lot of the things that you usually have around Hanukkah and celebrating?
I have on my website, I do all the latkes and the donuts and all the things.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So I want people to be able to experiment and to do all these fun things. And I know cinnamon buns is something you want to have at Christmas morning.
Yeah.
But I want them too.
You want them too, exactly. Deliciouswithout.com to find out more information, other recipes as well, and visit Miriam's YouTube channel. She's got a great YouTube channel, DWG, Delicious Without Gluten. If you just look that up, you will find it. Always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much, Miriam. We'll be back. We mentioned Sherry. Well, she's on the show talking cold and flu season. We'll be back with Sherry Torkos right after this.
This episode of Daytime Ottawa is brought to you in part by Trio Financial Planning, helping individuals and families live today and build for tomorrow. Branton Renovation is pleased to support this episode of Daytime Ottawa. Branton Renovations, Ottawa's award-winning renovations team.
We fought our way through Italy and then headed for Amsterdam, sweeping for Germans along the way. Our worst fear was to catch a bullet in these last hours of the war.
I was 15 when the Nazis invaded the Netherlands. More than 100,000 Dutch Jews never came home. Our men were put into forced labor. By 1945, we were starving. The food drops gave us hope. And then the Canadians came.
Before Amsterdam, I couldn't have explained why we were there, all those years away from home, but the Dutch showed us why it mattered.
Papa wanted me to bring some soldiers home to thank them personally. And that's when I first saw Wilf. And I invited him over that afternoon.
Marguerite Blaise married Lieutenant Wilf Gildersleeve. They moved to Vancouver, where they raised 8 children. Today, the Dutch still remember the Canadians who liberated them.
This episode of Daytime Ottawa is brought to you in part by Dustin Design and Drafting, your first step toward building your dream project with a team approach. Daytime Ottawa is proudly supported by Mary's Must Read Book Club. Follow Mary on social media at Mary K. Taggart for her latest book club picks.
Welcome back to the show. We've mentioned her a couple of times during the last two segments. I did not realize that she is celiac, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about cold and flu season, and do you have those essentials that will help you be prepared whether you get sick or, of course, to make sure you don't get sick? Sherry Torkos is a pharmacist and author of this fabulous book. It is called The Canadian Encyclopedia of Natural Medicine. Welcome back. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's great to see you.
People hear pharmacist, and then they hear you've written a book about natural medicine, and they're probably going, what is going on, Sherry?
Well, you know what, drugs certainly have their place, and if necessary, you know, antibiotics for treating bacterial infections. But when we're talking cold and flu, these are viruses that antibiotics don't work for. And so I brought some natural remedies that actually have scientific studies, Health Canada approved claims, things that can help speed healing, help with prevention, and some essentials really to have in your medicine cabinet as we get into the cold and flu season.
And I guess one of the first things when we're battling something, right, an infection of some kind, is that fever, right? Is that sort of the first sign that you're really starting to battle something in your body?
Yes, often fever is that first sign. Your body will raise the core temperature to fight infection. Okay. So what you want to have on hand is a good thermometer to check temperature. And we know that when I was a little girl, we had to put the one under our mouth or the one elsewhere. And when they tried to go elsewhere, I was like, forget it, I don't want that. Yeah. So we've progressed a lot with technology. So there are forehead thermometers, ear thermometers. This is the one we use in our house, and this is the Braun Thermoscan 7. It contains or offers this age precision technology, which is great because we know that the definition of fever differs based on the age of the child.
Really?
So what's normal for a 4-year-old could actually be a fever for an infant, a newborn infant, because their immune system is still developing. They can't fight infections. So I'm just going to turn this around so you can see. What you're going to do is you input your age stage 0 to 3 months, 3 months to 36 months, and then 36 months and above. And when you get the reading, it's color-coded. And so it'll tell you if it's green, it's okay. If it's yellow, it's elevated. You need to keep an eye on it. If it's red, it's a fever. And not all fevers need to be medicated. Of course, you want cool compresses on the forehead. We don't put children in ice baths. That's not recommended. Lots of fluids. So I brought some good hydration fluids, coconut water. This BioSteel is great as well. Broth, liquids, bananas because they're a source of potassium. Because we don't want to get dehydrated or lose those electrolytes.
So will that help us then shorten the duration of it?
Well, no. What these fluids do is they replace what your body is losing because you're at risk of getting dehydrated when you have a fever. So that is kind of the simple solutions for managing fever at home. Sometimes Tylenol or ibuprofen is recommended. We don't recommend aspirin for young children because of the risk of Reye's syndrome. So, but again, if you have a high fever with an infant, you should see a doctor because that may need medical attention. But there are some things that you can take at the first sign that can help shorten the duration of those pesky infections.
And the severity, I guess, as well, right?
So I brought with me, this is a nasal spray. It's the Betadine nasal spray. And Betadine is well known for its antibacterial, antiviral properties. So this is a nasal spray that you use at the first sign. And what it does is it traps and disables viruses in the sinus passages. So it's fascinating how that works. So I actually use this when I go on an airplane too, just to kind of protect myself. But yeah, you can spray this in the sinus passages. You can use it several times a day. And it also helps to alleviate congestion and hydrate the sinuses. There's a sore throat gargle as well. So if you have a sore throat, which is another first sign of an infection,
sign, for sure.
Sore throat, you feel like you can't swallow, razor blades in your throat, horrible. So you can gargle with that. And this is elderberry, black elderberry, and it's called sambucol. And I brought this because this is one of my top recommended remedies to help speed healing.
Okay.
So if you're coming down with the flu, for example, I mean, there are antiviral flu medications, but often doctors don't recommend them unless you're at risk of having complications. But this actually has activity against influenza A and B.
Really?
And it can help speed recovery. In fact, you can recover twice as fast.
And this is all natural?
This is all natural.
Wow.
It's black elderberry syrup. And this is safe for the whole family. So this is something that can be taken by children 2 and above. And so it's in this liquid here.
Right.
Tastes great, so kids like it.
Nice.
And again, yeah, I know, they're not going to spit it back.
That's a struggle some days, right?
Like some liquid medications in the pharmacy, kids are like, forget it, I'm not having that. They like this because it does taste good. And again, it's antiviral for influenza and also helps with cold symptoms. And there's lozenges as well.
Okay. Let's move over to foods because we should be thinking about the types of foods, especially during the winter season, right? We're trying to get those vitamin C and vitamin D.
Exactly.
And we can get some of that through food, right?
Absolutely. Vitamin C rich foods, we always think of citrus, and of course citrus is a great source, but think beyond citrus. Bell peppers are a great source of vitamin C. Mango, berries, blueberries, also strawberries are a great source. So what I tell families is you want to try and get your vitamin C through diet, but if you have picky eaters, kids that don't like fruits, then maybe you would want to look for a vitamin C supplement.
Okay, okay.
So think about that. Now, on to cough. One of the most annoying symptoms when you are sick is that chesty cough, that mucus in your chest.
It drives you, you can't sleep well because of it too. Yeah.
So something that I recommend as a very effective remedy for cough and also chest congestion is this formula here, and this is called Prospan by Helixia, and it contains a natural plant-based extract that's made from ivy leaf.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called EA 575, and it's been clinically studied, and what it does is it helps to thin the mucus, helps to make it easier for your body to expel the mucus.
Right.
And very effective, and it tastes great as well. And it also doesn't contain any gluten, of course.
Right, yeah.
These are all things that I take myself, so these are all gluten-free.
Exactly.
So no gluten, no alcohol, no sugars, no dyes, none of the things that parents don't want to give, right?
Just less than 60 seconds, so I want to make sure you get to the ones on the end here.
Let's talk about humidifiers because the indoor air is so dry.
Yeah, especially
in
winter.
the winter months, you wake up, your eyes are dry, your throat's dry, your nose. So if you run a humidifier in your bedroom at night, that puts moisture into the air, makes it easier to breathe. You can put a little Vicks Vapor Pad inside the humidifier, and it releases that mentholated aroma into the air for congestion. And lastly, if you have little ones, babies, they can't blow their nose, and when they get mucus in their nose, they're struggling to breathe. A nasal aspirator can be very helpful to suck out the mucus.
Nice, nice. SherryTorkos.com, by the way, to find out more information about Sherry. We'll be back talking a little Christmas decor and some exciting news with my friend Sue Pitchforth coming up right after this.
This episode of Daytime Ottawa is brought to you in part by Trio Financial Planning, helping individuals and families live today and build for tomorrow. Branton Renovation is pleased to support this episode of Daytime Ottawa. Branton Renovations, Ottawa's award-winning renovations team.
With Rogers TV, you can cheer on the home team from the comfort of your living room. We'll head to the rink, the field, the court, or the pitch, so you don't have to. Tune in and cheer on your local amateur athletes on Rogers TV.
Where's you?
Join us for season 4 of Simply Cooking by Chef, Sunday nights at 8 o'clock, right here on Rogers TV.
This episode of Daytime Ottawa is brought to you in part by Dustin Design and Drafting, your first step toward building your dream project with a team approach. Daytime Ottawa is proudly supported by Mary's Must Read Book Club. Follow Mary on social media at Mary K. Taggart for her latest book club picks.
Hey, welcome back to the show. There she is, Sue Pitchforth. We just popped her in there very quickly. She's got some exciting news to share, and of course, some exciting decor ideas for those of you that are celebrating Christmas or any other holiday. You want to bring something special into your home and something a little bit different. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Let's start talking about this. Is exciting. Tell me about this magazine and how this all came to be, Sue.
Oh my goodness. So Our Homes magazine of Ottawa, they contacted me. They heard that my house was going to be on the house tour, the Van Cleek Hill Christmas House Tour.
Right.
And they came in September, so I had to decorate my house in September, and they did a photo shoot. And that alone was my dream come true.
Right.
But to be on the cover is ridiculous. I still have to pinch myself.
There's the cover, the full cover right
my
there.
gosh,
I mean, look
there
at this
it
house. I was looking at just the unique decor, right, all the way up, and just the way that they've done this stairwell in general, and then you add to it. I mean, it just looks spectacular.
Yeah. When I first saw it,
such a great job, Sue.
When I first saw it, I went, "Is that my house?" It looks too nice.
I can imagine. You sent along a couple of photos as well.
Yes.
We'll start with those before we get to what we
sure.
have on the table here, but I'll ask my director, Dave, there to bring up the first photo. Let's talk about what you've done here on this beautiful chandelier.
Oh my goodness. So most of us never ever think of decorating our chandeliers.
Yeah.
And I saw this and I thought, what a great idea. It's just unique and different. And most of those things you can actually get from the dollar store, from Dollarama.
So is that ribbon that you've used there?
You can use ribbon, you could use fishing line if you want it to be clear. So very, very simple. You need a ladder, obviously. You have to move the table.
Yeah.
Don't stand on your table. But it's
safety first, friends.
Yeah, safety first. But it's very lovely. It's very unique and very different. And it doesn't cost a lot of money, which is so cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you brought a little decor to your outdoor space as well.
I did. So this is my back patio area that I had decorated for the house tour. And I have to say that everyone loved it. But the thing they loved the most was my Christmas tree.
Right.
And there is a story.
Okay, tell me about it.
So the week of the house tour, it was so windy. Every time I had 3 trees in my back. Every time I came home, the decorations and trees were all over the place. So after picking them up after the 4th or 5th time, I bagged all the decorations.
Okay.
And I went to my son's home and I cut every single hydrangea in their garden. And I came back and I put the hydrangeas in the Christmas trees.
Great idea, Sue.
So I spoke to every single person. There were 850 people that came into my house. Everyone loved this idea.
Nice.
And they're like, how did you come up with it? And I went, panic.
Funny you should ask. Actually, what was it like having 850 people come through your house?
It was incredible.
Yeah.
And for my home, unfortunately, a few years ago, there was a fire.
Okay.
So everybody wanted to know, what was done to it. But it was great. I met a lot of great people and hopefully inspired a lot of people.
And I can understand that curiosity.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
I mean, and this is it's a historical home that you're in too, right? A lot of people would have thought to themselves, I hope they, kept some of the traditional, design within the home, and boy, did they do a good job, didn't they?
Yeah, they really did.
Let's talk about what you brought here today. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, as you know, we have a shop called Curated Finds, inspired for you in Smiths Falls.
Yeah.
And I just brought a little array of some of the goodies that we have. And it's really, what we really wanted to show you was that small little things can make, big impact in your space.
Right.
So especially using a new cushion.
Yeah.
I love this one, Eat, Drink, and Be Merry. It's like the rules of Christmas.
Yeah.
You just put that on your couch or your chair, and it just automatically gives it a little bit of fresh life.
And I like that you're pointing out some things that are small, because I think sometimes things change, right? Like our kids have moved out now. We don't want to do the full, crazy decor all over the house anymore. We want it to be a little more subtle now, and this is a great way to do that, right? With smaller pieces.
Oh, absolutely. Plus, just what you said, it takes away the stress out of packing everything away, then bringing everything out, then packing everything away.
Yes.
So it's really just infusing some really unique, different things into your home, into your decor that you already have.
And you know what, I like what you've done, and it showcases it in the magazine itself, but you've added it to every room. Right?
Yes.
Oftentimes we're like, oh, it's the living room, dining room, and that's it. But why not in the powder room? When your guests come over and they've got a little something to look at, right?
Sure.
In every single room. It's a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got some other pieces here, of course, little trees that you've brought along here as well.
Yeah, so Christmas trees of all sorts. So this one's a wooden one. Anything with the snow, with the frosting of the snow, is hot right now.
Yeah.
I just bought a pencil tree and I put it up last night, and there was snow everywhere. It looks lovely, but I will warn the viewers.
Okay.
And I love anything natural, and this is a beautiful tree. It's grapevine, there's birch bark, pine cones. So it's really, and here's another nice, it's actually just tree branches that have been spray painted.
Okay.
So a lot of things, you can bring nature into your home, birch logs, greenery.
Yes.
And especially the greenery, it just really has a beautiful fragrance.
Oh yeah, we were just at the cottage, and Monica's like every tree, right?
Yeah.
We need a little pine, we need some cedar,
for sure.
right?
And what a smell.
Oh, it is so magnificent. And you know what I like about a lot of the pieces that you brought here? They don't just scream Christmas, they also scream winter. So if you wanted to keep some of these pieces around for the winter season, it would still make sense, right?
Absolutely, for sure. And that lantern is a really good idea on the end.
Exactly.
So you can keep that all winter. Even these trees you could keep as well.
DecorTherapyPlus.com, by the way, to find out more. If you need help from this wonderful woman, she will come and help you decorate, which is really the best way to often do it, because you get to pick someone else's brain. I'll be back to wrap things up right after this. Don't go anywhere.
For me, the end was just the beginning. I felt I must come. If I did not come at once, it would be too late. And these places that are watered with the best blood of Canada might only be names and memories. I see it in the soldiers, the grief I know so intimately. And I will not abandon these men to it. The isolation wears on me. Slowly, the silence takes over, as if my heart has given out of air. I cannot talk. I can only paint.
For more than 2 years, Mary Ryder Hamilton painted the battlefields of the First World War, creating an unforgettable visual record of service and sacrifices at immense personal cost.
Oh my goodness, what a great show. Big thanks to all of our guests as usual. Great vibe in the green room today and here in studio. It's been absolutely amazing. I want to remind you, Mario Bartolini's brand new book, The Speculatores, The Men Who Spied for Rome, available on Amazon. So you can just look that up on Amazon. He's also a wonderful mosaic artist. So if you go to Mario Bartolini, mosaics.blogspot.com, you can see some of his great mosaic work. A lot of it in and around that time period of the Roman time period. It's beautiful stuff. Mary's Must Read Book Club. You can follow Mary on Twitter. She's very active on there. Has a great group of other authors as well that interact on Twitter. So you can reach out to her on there and of course share some of your favorite books with Mary. Deliciouswithout.com if you want to find out more about some of the recipes that we talked about on today's show and of course previous shows. If you want to have a look at some of the products that Miriam offers, she does such great work and with all those alternatives. SherryTorcos.com. Big thanks to Sherry. I hadn't seen her for many years. Some great cold and flu options out there for you, all natural ones. So have a look out for them. We'll be back next time. Thanks so much for watching.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Hey everybody, my name is Karen. I'm here with my best friends Shane and Monique. Join us on Rogers TV for Fitness Faction. Every week we're going to take you through a full body workout. We've got strength training, we've got cardio, we've got HIIT. Ladies, let's get back into it.
I think we've got 10 more skaters. Let's go.
Join us Monday to Friday on Daytime Ottawa.